Welcome. This is your lucky seven. Your lucky seven. Look at this lucky seven right here on Saturday afternoon main event. This is the prestigious show that you guys call Saturday afternoon main event. Hello, guys. I am your host, Uncle Triple C, once again, the Lucky Seven, here on Saturday afternoon's main event, because for the 7th straight week, that piece of hot garbage, Phenomenal One, he will never appear on this program. But today, it's a stacked show as always. I have two co-hosts. First guy I'm going to introduce. You know, the contract that this guy has, it is concrete, but I will find a loophole. But he is the second half of the dynamic duo. He is the limousine riding, jet flying, kid stealing, wheeling, dealing. He's only going to get one clap, and his name is the Peeps Nate.
Woo! I'll take that one clap. Once again here, another great Saturday afternoon. For all of those that are following us, we thank you for joining us on all of our handles on Instagram, Saturday afternoons _main event. If you want to get us on Twitter /X, we're at Saturday Main, or on TikTok, Saturday afternoons ME. If you're on Twitch following us, if you're on YouTube following us, we thank you for joining us on, again, another great Saturday. And we don't do a great Saturday without the three tenets of a great Saturday afternoon. That's laughs, that's good times, and all the wrestling news possible.
Very good, Nate. And we do have a third co-host. He was part of the original Saturday afternoon's main event some quarter decade ago, not a quarter century. That would be for Nate over there. But he is, to you guys, Mr. 411, but to me, he is a good friend of mine, and his name, who can appear at the bottom of your screen, Christopher Morton. Welcome and greetings to
Hi guys!
Hi guys!
Uncle Triple C, it's always an honor. Always an honor. And I mean, Nate, do you see who that is? That's Uncle Triple C. We are in the presence of greatness.
Yes, I see. I see.
The presence of ratings dominance. That man has elevated the bar.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. 411.
Respect that man.
Yes.
Thank you.
We will all acknowledge Uncle Triple C. There you go.
Well, Nate, finally.
Well, there you go.
Finally say something positive for once.
There we
finally,
go.
Nate. Okay? But guess what? You're not getting a raise. But, Mr. 411, you, my friend, will get a raise. Because why? You deserve it. Mr. 411, Christopher Morton. My guy, right there.
All I can do is hope that our show has a better internet connection than Netflix did last night for the Paul Tyson fight.
Oh,
We'll touch base on that. But before we get into all of that, first and foremost, this is a staple here on Saturday afternoon's main event. This right here is a toast to the fact that that piece of hot garbage that used to do the show, Phenomenal One, he is of no more. Oh, and one more thing. Taz, whether it's by hook with your son or by crook, you are still the biggest piece of Brooklyn Red Hook Trailer Park trash walking, because the greatest borough in the history of New York City is my hometown of Queens, New York. Thank you. Now,
You know, Uncle Triple C actually said that last week while we were at Buffalo Wild Wings.
I did.
Wow.
Now, you hear that music, Nate? What is that music for?
Wrestling Crash Course.
Oh, by the way, look at this. Look at this.
There you go. Mr. 401 rocking some merch. Saturday afternoon's main event. You can see that back there, over there. So we do have different shirts. So believe you me, in the near future, there'll be possibilities of you guys being able to purchase the shirt, but that will be for some time down the road. But now, as you hear that music, as Nate just pointed out, it is called Wrestling Crash Course, and the first topic of the day, guys.
Yes.
Kenny Omega cleaning out his locker at AEW. So we did hear some rumors about Kenny Omega that granted we haven't seen him for a while, but he's going to appear somewhere. Nate?
Yes, it looks like his first in-ring work potentially coming back will be in New Japan Pro Wrestling, because he's thinking of Wrestle Dynasty going forward in January, potentially being the chance where he showcases his skills again after basically being out of commission since December of last year with the diverticulitis. And that was one of those injuries that is life-threatening, as he talked about ad nauseum more than once. And I guess his reasoning is that he doesn't think that AEW really needs him right now, because they have a lot of stars that are on the roster. They are there trying to push forward what they have with there. And I guess he wants to kind of slowly walk his way back in and get there as soon as possible, but not rushing it going forward. So, Chris, I'll ask you this one. What do you actually think is behind Kenny Omega as far as him maybe not going to AEW so fast? Do you think that this is a good move for him? Or do you actually think that this is something that should be something that others would look as a kind of like a warning sign?
Well, I'm curious what Tony Khan says about it, because obviously Tony Khan has to be in understanding, understanding that Kenny going there first is going to make this a big story. So maybe it's the whole Tony Khan relationship with New Japan that allowed this to happen, and that they just wanted to get him back in the ring and work. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm over here trying to find a reason why it makes sense, and it just doesn't. And obviously Kenny had that long-standing history in New Japan. We talk about the Wrestle Kingdom coming up, and right now a lot of people in New Japan, the fans specifically, are turning on Shota Umino as the main event for Wrestle Kingdom against Jack Sabre Jr. for the NWGP Heavyweight Championship. And so the thing is this, it's like, is Kenny going to go there to try to help out what's going on in New Japan? Is he rescuing the company to try to get the fans excited again about New Japan? Because he's not going to stay there long. Yeah. Unless there's something we don't know about. What if there is something we don't know about? What if the relationship with Kenny Omega and AEW is dying and it's almost over? What's his contract situation? There's so many variables here that we don't know.
Yeah, especially when he talked about how he is no longer he's not a guy that would be in the back as an EVP. A lot of people wondered, well, it was Omega and it was Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks being EVPs running the promotion underneath Tony Khan. And Kenny Omega himself said, I'm not fit for the boardroom kind of job. I'm to help develop talent put on great matches, that kind of aspect of the wrestling business. So maybe there is something there that we are not aware of as far as that relationship, that dynamic between Tony Khan and Kenny Omega, or it could just be smoke and mirrors and there really isn't anything wrong. It's just loaning him over to New Japan for cross promotion to help get him back together so that when he's fully healthy, they can bring him in with a decent story.
By the way, I just want to correct myself. I said the wrong letters. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But there's a lot to this that we're going to find out in the coming weeks and why this happened. And if you're Tony Khan right now, and we're going to talk about that in a little while, I mean, you need as much star power as you can get on your TV show. So for him to go to New Japan for his whatever length it may be, even if it's just one match, we don't know. I'd much rather have him in AEW.
Very correct, Mr. 411. Definitely agree with you. I think that Tony Khan, AEW, I think it's a mistake. Having Kenny Omega's first match back, it doesn't matter where. It should be in AEW. I think it's just a mistake. It's not a colossal mistake, but I just think it's just a mistake having him have his first match somewhere else instead of where you're paying the man in AEW. Because what if he gets hurt? I'm not saying, wishing that upon him, but I'm just saying, I just think that it doesn't make any sense to have him wrestle somewhere else where your own brand, which you're about to get to, Mr. 411, in AEW, is, to me, not to say it's dying, but it's not at its peak right now. Mr. 411, would you like to share your thoughts?
Well, just to piggyback off what you just said, talking about Omega's style and the difference in the style he worked in New Japan versus AEW, more reckless style, more dangerous style. We always talk about that. Guys in New Japan have a lot of miles on their body. And we've seen it with Okada coming in and how people have suggested online how broken down he looks. Other podcast hosts have talked about it. He doesn't look like Okada anymore. A lot of the guys that come over from New Japan look exhausted. They just look beaten up because of that crazy style that they do work. So, again, to your point, what if he does go there and have one of Meltzer's 7-star classics, but then can't work again?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But
so, your thoughts, Mr. 401, on AEW as a whole?
Okay, AEW, this is interesting. So I had a rule recently. Actually, I am going to have a rule going forward with AEW if I'm going to watch the program or not. My rule is 3 drops on the head and I turn the show off. So if any wrestler gets dropped on their head 3 times in a match, I'm turning it off because it becomes unrealistic and it looks fake. It just looks so fake that people can kick out of this, especially some of their guys that weigh anywhere from 160 to 180 with, as what Fred Blassie and pencil neck geeks, right?
Yes.
These people look like, and yet they can recover easily. And people like to use that word adrenaline. I call it ridiculous. So I mean, there's only so much adrenaline coming from a 160-pound man. So that's my rule. So what I did this week is I turned on Dynamite. I said, let me give Dynamite a chance. We'll see what happens. All right. And I got to see the match between Adam Cole and who did Adam Cole wrestle again? See, it escapes my mind.
I believe Adam Cole went against Malachi Black.
No, that was last week.
That was last week. That was last week. Yeah.
Takeshita, right?
Takeshita, thank you.
Takeshita, that's right.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was good. I liked it. It was really well done. There wasn't anything ridiculous. There may have been one stupid spot where Takeshita hit Adam Cole with a tombstone pile driver into a wheelbarrow suplex where he didn't land on his head. But that was the only time in the match where someone was dropped on their head, pretty much. Because I think the Panama Sunrise got blocked a couple times, right? Like they actually worked the spot where it didn't happen. And I like that. You need to tease spots to where someone's actually fighting and not allowing things to be, and what's the biggest word people use? How cooperative it looks. It can't look cooperative. It has to look like a fight. And that's what we hope that they lean towards going forward, that things look more like fights. So, all right. So here's my rant. So they had been promoting all week. I don't know if I imagine it was all over social media. I'm not a big person on there. Moxley to take over TBS, right? That's what we were going to get. We were going to get to see. So Moxley comes out. He cuts this horrible promo. I mean, you can't make up how bad of a promo this was. It was monotone. There was I don't know what he said. I don't think there was anything that added to any of this. And then his opponent at Full Gear for the main title is Orange Cassidy. He comes out, cuts an equally poor promo. I mean, the guy had never spoke in the past. Now he's speaking, and I don't know if it's an advantage to his career. Like, I don't think him speaking is helping Orange Cassidy because it's not good. And it's just like, you know, and people will go, oh, how can I call it boring? You know, like, ooh, how dare I? That's what the, you know, AEW fans. So I'll tell you this, okay? Forget about the mediocre attendance and the consistently declining numbers. Although this show had a tick, it had an uptick, and I think the AEW fans had a parade based on the uptick because if you know, last week was what, 533?
Yes.
All right, this week was 566. So that increase is not really indicative of the numbers that you can get excited about because no one should be excited ever about that kind of jump when they were heading.
Actually, AEW did 666, though. They pulled out the Devils. They pulled the Mark of the Beast for their numbers.
The Beast! The Beast!
There you go.
I was actually going to touch on that. I will touch on that actually in my rant here. Is that they get that number, right? Again, it's nothing to be excited about, right? So, okay, so, you know, forget about the attendance and the consistently declining ratings. I mean, if I didn't watch AEW and had no idea who anybody was, let's say I had never seen it before, I turned it on. I mean, I would simply think that neither guy was over. Think about it. When cutting those two promos, I would think no one was over because you could hear a pin drop. Nothing. Silence from the crowd during the segment. So think about this. If the 2,700 people in attendance doesn't care about the company's next pay-per-view match for the main title of this company, why would I want to watch? Right?
One thing, Mr. 401, before you say anything else, to your point, in that promo, if you go back, a friend of mine actually sent it to me. You could not only that you could not hear a pin drop, but you actually heard a fan say while John Moxley was talking, "Go back to Roman." That's horrible. But anyway, continue with 401.
Oh, I'm confused. I can't see anybody right now.
We see you.
Oh, okay.
We see you.
Like
yeah.
When you did the pullback on the screen, I lost you guys.
Okay. Well, we see you.
Okay. So my question is, when you think about that audience there, the 2,700 people not reacting, I thought about this. Is Tony Khan now paying the audience? Like, are fans being paid? Is it an actual studio audience? Or is everyone being comped? Because why would you want to be there? Like, if you're not reacting to anything, why are you there? So it kind of comes off as these people are being paid to be there. Like, you know, and you could say, oh, how dare I suggest such a thing? You know what? Well, but how about how desperate and clickbaitish it was of Tony Khan to do that, to tell us Moxley would take over AEW? That's embarrassing. It's so bad because what did he do? What happened? You know what I mean? And, you know, pardon me, just going through my notes here. I mean, and it will only turn away more fans as AEW has done over the last year or two. The fans have gone away, and are they coming back? I don't know. And then, Nate, you just touched on the ratings. 666. Did Tony Khan sell his soul for that number? You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a good one.
Right. So here's the best part. Here's the best part of the entire segment. It happened earlier on, by the way, when they first hit the ring. So Schiavone goes like this. Listen to this. When they get into the ring, he goes, "They made the cameraman get into the ring." And I'm like, oh my God. The audacity. I was like, the NWO has absolutely nothing on the Death Riders. I mean, that was so cutting edge. They made the cameraman get into the ring. So answer something for me, guys. What happened in that segment? Now, granted, we got a brawl. I'm not saying we didn't get something at the end of that segment, but for the most part, did John Moxley take over TBS?
No.
Okay.
And that was the thing that was the most disheartening of the entire segment, is the fact that they actually said that. They put that in their promo package. They put that in their commercials. When they were showing Well, if you watch Dynamite during the week, they will show you the commercial of what's going to happen, and they expressly put that there. So I was expecting, like most of us, some sort of NWO takeover or some kind of DX takeover where they're in the trucks or they're in the back or they're messing with the commentary booth. None of that. It was just the Death Riders came and cut a promo, which they do every week. How is that taking over TBS? That didn't make any sense to me. That was an ultimate bait and switch that, as Hulk Hogan used to say when the NWO and the demise of WCW, said there's certain little things that you can get away with that the fans can forgive you for. It's the pile up of those little things that lead to big things that are unforbidden and unforgivable. It's
such next level clickbait that, again, when we talked about it in the past with all Tony Khan's announcements, his so-called special announcements that will end up being duds. This is an example of that. They're like, oh, I want to see what Mox is going to do. This is going to be amazing. And then you get that. Like, let's see what the number looks like next week off of this.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. 411. So that takes care of AEW. So last night on SmackDown, LA Knight, after his match, very good match, by the way, beating Roberto, Shinsuke Nakamura, he is back. A different Shinsuke? A painted up Shinsuke?
Yes.
So let's start with you. Your thoughts on seeing Shinsuke back on our TV screen in WWE? All right. Well, I guess Mr. 401, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm having issues on my end. For some reason, I still can't see you guys. I was thinking about exiting out of the studio and coming back in.
Okay. So do you want to exit out and then come back?
Yeah, I'm going to come back in.
All right.
Okay.
So, Pete Stage, what are your thoughts on Shinsuke coming back?
I actually, first of all, nobody was thinking that Shinsuke was even some people didn't even think he was in the company anymore because he gets completely disappeared after his feud with Cody Rhodes and some of the stuff that he did some months ago. I think the last time we saw him, was it back in the summer? Maybe as shortly before the summer. I think that's the last time we saw him in ring. But to see him come in all black with the paint on his face, he looked like he went back to New Japan. Like, this is great Muta style of Shinsuke. And I think that they can do some things with him if they do it the right way. And he's going after LA Knight. I like this. I like the approach.
Yeah, it's the secondary title. Clearly, they look like they have something planned for Shinsuke moving forward. So let's see what happens. But seeing him back, yesterday was surprising. I was not expecting to see him back on screen. And clearly, they do have something planned for him. So, like you said, good to see him. We'll see what kind of promos he cut and what his motives will be. Mr. 401, your thoughts on seeing Shinsuke?
Yeah, I can see you guys again, so that worked.
There you go.
So I didn't see the segment, but from reading about it and just what you guys just talked about now, I had been for weeks, we talk about LA Knight's next opponent and the fact that there really isn't a lot going on there. And apparently they don't want to rush Carmelo Hayes or Andrade to take that title. They don't feel like they're on that level to take the title. So then you ask, is Nakamura that guy to take the title? Because not saying LA Knight is stale or flat or anything of the sort, but at some point, I don't know how long the run is or who they have planned. Maybe after Nakamura, if Nakamura is just another guy who's going to compete but not win the title. I don't know who the next guy is. The next guy, and I know Kevin Owens has a storyline right now, but as a heel, maybe he could be a guy down the road to go against LA Knight. Jacob Fatu could be a guy to go against LA Knight in the future, just building guys. So I don't know what the plan here is. Nakamura had a really good run at some points in WWE, but to be fair, sometimes he's also been a glorified jobber. And it bothered me at certain points to see him in high-profile matches, especially against Cody Rhodes, where unfortunately you knew going in, he had no chance to win. And that kind of bothered me at sometimes because we know his history and how good he is. And granted, some people will say he, again, looks washed up, like a lot of New Japan guys that we talked about earlier, and the style that they once worked. But now that he has that reduced style, his body's had a chance to recover, perhaps. And excuse me, guys, I've been sick all week. So we'll see what the future holds with Nakamura. And if nothing else, we get a good match out of this. We get good matches.
Unlike Peep Snake, Mr. 401, who has been sick all week. Obviously, he's drinking. So clearly, I appreciate you, Mr. 401, being on this program while you are sick. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop drinking. Stop drinking. You don't drink, Nate. You don't drink. Okay? You don't drink on the Uncle Triple C Saturday afternoon's main event show. Now, take care of Shinsuke Nakamura. Now,
The lack of respect.
Lack of respect was the whole one. That takes care of Shinsuke. Our next topic, and the third and last topic, and we're going to get touch on the boxing last night, but let's get to the next topic. It's Scott D'Amore spotted at WWE PC. Nate, let's start with you. Your thoughts on D'Amore in WWE or spotted?
Well, I think that he brings a little bit of what he did, or at least was trying to do when he was in TNA. Whether people think he did a huge job in TNA and helping booking the promotion and helping getting TNA back to where they were from Impact Wrestling, because he had to take over in a period where Impact was really down, especially after the pandemic. The attendance wasn't down. They weren't touring as often, and trying to help develop the younger guys, some of the independent wrestlers that were going away from WWE, but not necessarily going to AEW, going into Impact, and then the rebrand of TNA, and then getting that information and helping that out. So he can bring that level of cachet that he has, a reputation of helping develop talent, or at least seeing talent there, and then helping that happen, because he's got connections within the wrestling business. He could talk to other promoters. He could talk to other wrestlers that potentially are in other, say, independent companies, and maybe come through the WWE ID program, help develop them, and then start populating those three brands of NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. So I think that's what he's been there for. And I think that's a pretty good asset for WWE going forward.
The 4-1?
Yes, no doubt. Everything Nate said is accurate about D'Amore just revitalizing the TNA brand, and what it looks like now today is part of what he did. Don't get me wrong. And I mean, they do have good people there still contributing to that show. Outside of all of that, I mean, you know, I've been often critical sometimes of Shawn Michaels and the booking and little things that you could nitpick and say he's not Triple H when you look at the NXT brand. So I don't know, maybe D'Amore does bring another thought process into the booking, and hey, we could do this differently, and maybe HBK would be open to listening, and we could get a better overall product. The interesting part now is that with the relationship with TNA, how does that work, knowing he was fired? And if you're TNA upper management, do you want them now working with NXT? Because not saying Scott D'Amore is vindictive and is now going to go against certain guys that maybe he didn't like and get HBK to job them out on purpose, you know, just things you could think about. But
yeah,
I'm curious to see how that relationship does work with TNA going forward.
All right, that takes care of Scott D'Amore being at WWE. Before we get to our break, last night in front of 72,000 people at A&T Stadium at Jerry's World. Granted, it's not wrestling. What were your thoughts on Mike Tyson against Jake Paul last night?
We didn't get to see it. Did anyone watch it? It was so, I mean, listen, I'm sure you're aware of this, but people on X, Twitter, went nuts last night because the Netflix barely worked. I'll get arrested, I guess, if I'm cool with that. Illegally streaming it through Netflix off a website, and it was buffering all the time. The person that had it up on the site had to keep reloading Netflix just so we can get it. And people missed time in the undercard. The main event, I think the beginning had a glitch. I don't know if the first round got on time or not, but people were flipping out, especially WWE fans, going, "Oh my God, this is what Raw's gonna look like? What do we do with this?"
Yes.
So yeah, that was in terms of the fight. I was so, as a boxing fan, growing up as a kid, being the biggest Mike Tyson fan, I was so sad and embarrassed for him. The fact that there was a point in the 7th round where they showed the CompuBox, and Jake Paul had landed 59 punches, Tyson 15. And I just went, listen, Jake Paul fought the statue of Mike Tyson last night because Mike Tyson wasn't there to fight. And I don't want to question the man's integrity and say he took a dive last night. But I mean, he did get paid $20 million. So I'm curious to know if they said, we're going to pay you $20 million and you're going to stand there and do nothing. Because that's what Mike Tyson did last night. He did nothing.
Yeah. The first 2 rounds, Tyson looked like he was going to make it interesting. But as great of an athlete as he is, because obviously the one thing that power punchers have that they never get rid of is their power. As far as pacing, as far as lateral movement back and forth, evading punches, he's 58 years old. I don't think a lot of people were rooting for Tyson to win just because of how everybody feels about the Paul brothers. I think most people, they find both of them highly unlikable. But going in, we're seeing somebody that's in their late 20s, early 30s, fighting against somebody who is almost 60 years old. That's kind of what happened.
No,
Fight should have, in my opinion, should have never happened in the first place.
But let's be fair, though. When we saw those training videos of Tyson, he looked like a savage against his partners and everything such. When that fight, now, a lot of my buffering issues happened in the first 2 rounds. Now, I know he won those first 2 rounds on the scorecard. I didn't see them. And furthermore, I thought it was a joke. Granted, 58, boxing having 2-minute rounds. Are you kidding me? For the women, I understood that. I get that for the women. But a 2-minute round? And then after the second round, Tyson just stopped fighting. I mean, he never threw any combination for the next 6 rounds. Not one combination. He was barely touching him. It was embarrassing. And the fans started booing. You heard the fans react at the end. It wasn't good. And for anyone who would want to see another fight between them, or whether it's Logan, I know there was a post altercation with Logan Paul, and Tyson said he would want to fight Logan Paul. My question is, would anyone want to see Mike Tyson fight Logan Paul now? I would hope not, because who would want to see that?
No, agreed. But real quick before we get to our break, I have to say the ladies, they killed it. They were awesome. The only thing is that the right person did not go over.
Oh, she got robbed.
She got highway robbery. The Spanish folks got robbed in Texas. That's exactly what happened. I told you the truth. And don't even look to Drake, Nate. That's exactly what happened.
Exactly. You know what? White people stole it again. That's what they do. White people steal everything.
You said it. All right.
Oh, boy.
On that note, we are going to take a break. That's Mr. 411, Peep Snakes, Uncle Triple C. We will be right back after this. And I have a special guest for the first time ever, a female who's got to get interviewed. We'll be right back after this. This is Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Hello, everybody. As I said before, I did have a special guest. And right here, folks, is Kamala. Right here, I have the Vice President of the United States, Kamala. Kamala, I have a question for you. Why did you not have me with you for the Democratic nominee? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you decided not to have your uncle. You decided not to have your uncle to run the presidency of the United States. Now, since you lost and all this money that you have, are you planning to give it to me? Well, I'll tell you what you're planning to do. You're going to hit the road, Toots, because at the end of the day, you failed this country. We're back here. Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Let me just put this mic back.
You got that all out of your system? You got it out of your system? Feel a little better?
I still cannot get over the fact that your uncle, is not the president of the United States. And I blame Kamala. Now,
How's your producer? Did you fire that producer last week?
Well, I did. I have a new one.
Okay.
I'm a little iffy, but you know what? He hasn't been too bad. But anyway, I am your uncle, Triple C. And to my right,
that is the Peeps Nate, and right below me is
Mr. 4-1. Hi guys.
this is not the Brady Bunch, but this is Saturday afternoon's main event. And H, please give them the handles.
of course the handles. If you want to join us on Instagram, Saturday afternoons _main event. If you're on X or Twitter or whatever the heck they call it nowadays, it's at Saturday Main. If you want to get us on TikTok, it's Saturday Afternoons ME. And if you're joining us on Twitch, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts, you just type in Saturday Afternoons Main Event, and we will populate your screen with the best thing you can have on a Saturday afternoon. And there you go.
H, it's actually still called X. The problem is no one wants to call it X. And Elon Musk, what another piece of crap in this country, he refuses to change it back to Twitter for whatever reason. No one's ever going to really call it X.
Yeah.
Once again, the staple here is the fact that for the 7th consecutive week under the Uncle Triple C era, that piece of hot garbage, Phenomenal One, you are no more. And speaking of Phenomenal One, there was a host that used to actually host this show when it got rebranded a few years ago. And at the time, his name was Julius Caesar, who is Phenomenal One's co-host at the time before Nate took over, of course, under my supervision, but that's another conversation. But Julius Caesar, you know what he said to me? He actually reached out to me this week. You know what he said to me? He goes, Uncle Triple C, you are truly the bona fide future Hall of Famer of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. And I'm glad that you are now the true host of Same. Thank you, Mr. 411. And that came from an old co-host for the Phenomenal One, Julius Caesar. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just telling you the facts. This is what was said.
The proof is in the pudding that the show's numbers have gone through the roof in these past 7 weeks under the leadership of Uncle Triple C.
Your tribal host. Thank you very much. Now, of course, before we even get to all our segments, hey, Nate, and to the questions. Hey, Nate, please give them the full ratings.
Full ratings are as follows. AEW this past week did, like we said, the Mark of the Beast 666,000, where NXT did 631,000. So a little bit of a dip, but it was one of those weeks where the show, I think the NXT show was better, but I think that a lot of people that were looking at AEW, probably from the Moxley talk about taking over TBS or what they thought was going to happen, maybe that kind of bridged over into maybe getting some interest. So maybe that's what kind of got the numbers up a little bit.
Well, not to mention that NXT didn't have any star power also. So their number is going to be lower when they don't have anybody from the main roster coming over. That's just the way it is.
All right. So now this is Nature's favorite, one of his favorite, I guess, things of the day is the questions from you fans. So if you guys have any questions, you can always DM us, hit us up on all our social media handles, and we'll promise you guys that we will put your questions up the following week. But this week, the first question of the day, Peeps Nate.
Yes, so this comes from Master Sean 007. Greetings, gentlemen.
Hey!
And Uncle Triple C.
That's right.
Relax. I got you. With this week being the anniversary of Eddie Guerrero's passing and what would have been Randy Savage's birthday, can you guys share your favorite memories of them?
Oh, man. I'll go first. There's so many memories of both those guys. You talk about, Randy winning his first title at WrestleMania 4 in Atlantic City. Savage Steamboat, we did an old school segment, which to me is one of the greatest matches in professional wrestling history. His run at WCW. Randy Savage he's had so many legendary moments in his career. It's so much, it's almost, crazy to try to pinpoint one, to say. But Randy Savage, to me, is one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of boots. Eddie Guerrero, I mean, listen, here's another one. I mean, him winning that title against Brock Lesnar at No Way Out in 2003, I believe.
I think it was 2000 and was it late 2003 or early 2004? I think it might have been late 2003.
Right. Well, 03, 04, whatever it was.
Yeah.
How dare Nate try to fact check you? By the way, what's up with that?
I mean, Nate is trying to embarrass his uncle, but I'll deal with Nate after the show is over with. But I'll have to say Eddie Guerrero, I mean, a game changer. I mean, you think about the wrestlers, of today that, tried to do the Three Amigos. You think of what Eddie Guerrero meant to Sasha Banks, what he meant to even who I believe the greatest Mysterio of all time, my boy, Dom Mysterio. I really truly believe that Uncle Eddie is really Poppy Eddie for Dom. But I mean, I can't prove it right now. But Eddie Guerrero is one of, to me, the greatest performers in the history of this business. And Corey Richmond has chimed in and saying Eddie being the real father figure for the greatest North American champion of all time. Corey, you have read my mind. Kudos to you, Corey. Now, Mr. Bullhorn, your thoughts on what Mr. Master Sean 007 had to say?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about Eddie Guerrero's career, and always, for me, it starts back in ECW with the classic matches against Dean Malenko, the 2 out of 3 falls match. It's just legendary stuff at a time when ECW was really doing so much hardcore stuff, and that just stood out as being different within the company. And I mean, the legendary career that he's had, cruiserweight matches in WCW to what you guys already discussed in his WWE run, just great match after great match. And we talk about Eddie, the size difference. When Eddie was on the gas, we knew it because Eddie got really jacked for a minute there. Eddie looked so gassed, but just an amazing career. Savage, talking about early Savage moments in my wrestling history was when he beat Tito Santana using the foreign object. Remember when Santana brought him in over the top rope at the Boston Garden? Savage went into his tights, pulled it out, hit him in the face, won the IC title for the first time. Yeah, just little memories like that just stand
in Boston
out.
Garden, I remember it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking also about with Jake the Snake and the Cobra biting Savage. Remember that?
Yes.
And I'm sure you guys are privy because of all these biographies that they do on A&E of Savage telling Jake in the locker room that he wouldn't take the snake bite because he didn't trust the situation until the snake bit Jake. Jake had to let the snake bite him first before Savage allowed it to happen.
Yes.
Nate, your thoughts?
Yes, I want to two of the single greatest wrestlers that have ever walked the face of this earth in this business. Savage, who is probably so iconic that we've had so many people imitate him. Dan Soder, who is another great stand-up comedian, does a great impersonation of Randy Savage. We even have had other wrestlers take parts of Randy Savage, including Jay Lethal, became Black Machismo, and would cut promos and walk in and out while in TNA, where you would see, let's say Kevin Nash was having a promo, cutting a promo with somebody, and all of a sudden Jay Lethal would just, "Where's the Snake Man? Yeah, I'm going to get him." And you just walk off the screen like, what is wrong with this guy? But that's the influence that Savage has had over the years. And I think that Savage, where you can go matches, his match with Flair at SummerSlam, or we should say the match with the Warrior at SummerSlam, his match with Flair at WrestleMania 8, the Steamboat matches, all of those matches. You could pull out 15 matches, and you can have different people say that.
Sorry to cut you off, but what was the most interesting thing about the Warrior Savage match that we later learned was that people went crazy about, the Warrior pinned him by putting his boot on his body, and it was so disrespectful to Savage. No, we learned Savage was the one that came up with that idea. He wanted to
Yes, and it was perfect. As far as Eddie Guerrero Eddie Guerrero, I think, was as much of the backbone of the cruiserweight division in WCW and in ECW as anybody could get, because his influence was able to bring other wrestlers that were within that lucha libre style and of those cruiserweights to follow Eddie and then to be part of those matches and to be stronger as a division. Because when WCW was looking for content on a 2-hour show and eventually ballooned to 3 hours, the cruiserweight division was the backbone of WCW for a long time. And a lot of that was spearheaded by Eddie Guerrero and, of course, all of the other cruiserweights that were on the roster at the time. And my favorite moment, per se, I have to go back to WrestleMania 20, was the match that Kurt Angle had with Eddie Guerrero. And Eddie, in a process of getting put in the ankle lock, untied his boot, and Kurt Angle tried to put the ankle lock on him and yank the boot right off, and then Eddie was able to roll him up and pin him. Those are the kinds of moments that I will always remember about Eddie, always outthinking his wrestler every chance they got. And that's the reason why he was so beloved by everybody.
You know, Uncle Triple T, if nothing about Nate, we can give him credit for, as old as this man is, his memory is amazing.
I'll give him that. That's the only thing I'll ever give Nate is his memory. Master Sean 007, thank you very much for that great question. We can spend a whole day on those two. Next question comes from Tombstone City Adam.
Yes, and he says, so I guess Roman is really going to have to make amends.
What's the question?
Right.
Unless that was just the statement that's there.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll get to the bloodline in a little while, so we'll save that for, since that's just a statement. We'll just save that for in a few minutes. The third question comes from Hot Rod 316. H.
Okay, how many rounds did you think you can last with Hall of Famer Mike Tyson? Plus, do you think Logan Paul should take Tyson's challenge for the next fight?
I'll take that, and the answer is no. I mean, of course, for money, you would say yes. And I just don't. First of all, 70,000 people, that was an amazing spectacle last night. However, seeing what we saw out of Mike Tyson, by the way, just 4 years ago, he fought Roy Jones Jr., and he looked so much better. He looked so much more aggressive. And again, I don't want to question his integrity about did he dive or not, but what kind of audience are we going to get for that fight? You know what I mean? How many people are going to go, no, why would I go pay my money to go see that unless the undercard is tremendous? You know what I mean? Yes. Or we can see another white person steal another fight. But no. I wouldn't want to see it. And I wouldn't, right now, I mean, who would want to listen? If you're going to tell me Mike Tyson is going to fight me like that, I'll get in the ring for $20 million. Although, wait, no, actually, Jake Paul got paid $40 million last night. Who wouldn't get in the ring for that amount of money if you're going to fight Tyson, who looks like a statue? And
plus the amount of the gate that came from Netflix for a lot of people that weren't able to watch the entire fight. So,
yeah, it's a lot of heat. Oh, could you imagine if the first Raw looks like that? Oh, my God. People are going to lose.
Right.
Oh, there will be some angry fans out there, but I'll digress.
That would be brutal. Hot Rod 316, thank you very much for that question. Our next question, Long Island Isaiah.
Yes, and he says, I love Wargames for this year, but I just hope that they don't turn this into Hell in a Cell. Do you see it becoming like that, guys? Well, and I guess the thought process is meaning Hell in a Cell the way that they did the pay-per-view, where it would be like, oh, it's going to just be old hat Hell in a Cell kind of thing. Well, what do you guys think?
I don't know. I don't know what he means. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not going to be Hell in a Cell. It's going to be War Games. It's been War Games these last 2 years, or at least under Triple H, whether it was NXT or under his guidance now on the main roster. So I don't see it being Hell in a Cell. I just think it'll just continue just being War Games.
Now, what is the difference? Does the WWE current War Games cage have a roof or not?
Well, they haven't had a roof on the last few.
Right.
And they're actually going 5-on-5 this year, which is a first, because they usually would do 4-on-4. And when they did it in NXT, they did 3-on-3, and then they did 3 teams of 3 at one point. So I think they should put a roof on there, but I think that for the camera work that the WWE does, they're probably going to keep that roof over there so people can probably dive off the top of the cage and into the ring. That's what I would think.
Which takes away from what the original Wargames was. And
Yes.
I mean, whatever. It's nitpicking again. We're obviously going to talk about that match in a minute. So.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for those questions. Again, you can always DM us all our social media handles. If you have a question, we'll promise you that we will put it on for you guys. And only me, your uncle, will put on your questions next week on Saturday afternoons. Main event. Peeps Snitch, Mr. 401, Uncle Triple C here every single Saturday, 9 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Mountain, every single Saturday here on all the social media handles. So that takes care of all of that. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is a segment that Nate, Mr. 401, and myself that we all do appreciate and we do love talking about, and it's called Old School. So
we need to get you some reverb for that so that the voice can echo when you say that.
There you go. So the match that we are going to discuss is AJ Styles versus the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe, TNA Unbreakable. The 2005 is for the X Division Championship in a three-way dance. Even though we call it three-way dance, but the ECW was three-way dance. That was truly a three-way dance. But we call it three-way dance here for Unbreakable. So I will start with you, Nate. What were your thoughts on this match?
First off, one of the things that Mr. 411 has always talked about, and we've talked about this over the years, about how triple threat matches, three-way dances, away from the original concept of what they were, have kind of devolved into lazy booking, where you have three guys where you'd have two men that were supposed to have a match, but the booking didn't feel confident that those two could carry the match. So they threw in a third wrestler in to kind of dazzle everything up and maybe add some extra intrigue to the match. And usually what you end up getting is two guys wrestle, one guy's on the floor. Two guys double team somebody, then another guy's on the floor, and then two. That was not what happened in this match. This was literally the best concept of what a triple threat or a three-way dance was supposed to be in spirit. Going in, Samoa Joe was undefeated at that point going into the match, having won the X Cup, where they had an X Division tournament to determine the best wrestler to get a shot at the X Division championship. AJ Styles going into that match was AJ Styles, two-time Grand Slam winner at the time going into the match, and Christopher Daniels is Christopher Daniels. Those that see him in AEW that may not have seen him in his early part of his career was a great tactician, a great wrestler, and he showed off in this match in what is hard to believe, Dave Meltzer's only 5-star match from TNA. Think about that, and all of the ratings that he's done.
Thoughts, 411?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if Meltzer went back and watched most of the matches from yesteryear, I think he would have to upgrade a lot of his rankings and ratings.
Yes.
This match today, if you put this match on AEW television, it would get 5.5 stars. If you put this match today in Japan, it would get 6 stars. This is how well done this match was. I rewatched it last night just to kind of refresh the memory. And the key about that, Nate, you hit the nail right on the head, talking about the triple threat match and how it was supposed to be done, the original aspect of it. And these three worked so hard. They were always, most of the time, in the ring. That's another thing. Very few high spots. When the high spots were done, it made sense. You got to see AJ do a spinal tap to break up a count. That makes sense. I mean, reasons to do a high spot. And look at this. Look at this picture right here, how amazing that looks. And just the coordination and it looking like a fight. Guys kicking each other, guys hitting each other. Samoa Joe style back then. The way he would slap guys in the face and punch them. And his knees looked legit. Like his knees didn't look phony. His forearms didn't look phony. They looked like they were crushing your face. And AJ, simply phenomenal. I mean, the work in this match from him. And Daniels, you just mentioned his history in the ring. And I mean, this is what it's supposed to look like. And think about that. 19 years ago, this match. 19 years ago. And these guys are killing it, man. They're absolutely killing it. And I was thinking last night after I watched this, that in my opinion, when you talk about wrestlers over the last 20 years, if you were going to have a top 10 of the best wrestlers ever over the last 20 years, I should say, you cannot leave Samoa Joe or AJ Styles off that top 10. If I had a conversation with you and you gave me 10 other people that you could definitively say were better than Styles and Samoa Joe over the last 20 years, I can no longer speak to you because they belong in a top 10.
Yes, without question. And even more so about the match, there was not a single one count that I recall in that entire match. And looking at how it was structured, a one count, if this kind of match was constructed for today's wrestling fan in today's wrestling style, there probably would have been a couple of pile drivers that somebody would have kicked out of, or there would have been a one count where somebody was going to show that burning spirit that you see in Japan, in New Japan wrestling matches. That does not apply into this kind of a match because of the way that they went. And to think about it, the regular quote unquote main event was supposed to be Rhino versus Raven for the NWA/TNA World Championship, and those participants were watching this match at Gorilla. That's how much respect this match deserved for what it was as the main event of this pay-per-view.
No, I feel like everybody in AEW should have to watch this match and understand how you do a triple threat match if you're going to ever do one. You have to watch this. And even like we talked about SmackDown last night, like I know we really didn't talk about SmackDown, but in terms of the triple threat for the Women's United States title, and I don't want to say anything was bad or whatever. My point is it's overkill. We don't need the triple threat match unless it has a purpose for it. And it is kind of lazy booking when you could have just had an 8-person tournament with 4 matches. Why can't you just have 4 matches and go from there? Why does it have to be a triple threat? Because we know ultimately in today's booking, which is sad, most of the time the triple threat involves one person in which you know they're going to be the one to take the loss.
And it was logical the way that this match ended. Uncle, what did you think of the way this ended?
Well, listen, it was a great match. There's really not much that I can say that what you guys have already pointed to. It was such a classic, such a great match, perhaps the greatest TNA match ever in the history of that promotion. This was well done. Like you guys pointed to before, there was not a lull in there. Like you guys said, like one guy being out for 5 minutes. Like you said, like even last night, we're watching a 3-way, between the women. I mean, there's a point where you'll see 2-3 minutes where you won't see, somebody in the, all 3 of them in the ring. But in this match, I mean, like you said, all the moves make sense, and it was such a great match. And I will definitely tell everybody to go out. If you have never seen this match, make it your business to watch this match, because that is what professional wrestling, and that's what a 3-way match is to me supposed to look like. So
and I had texted Uncle Triple C last night or 2 days ago when we were talking, when he had let me know that this was going to be the match, and I referenced to him that back in the day when we would go over to his house and watch WWE pay-per-views, and I would record the TNA pay-per-views and bring them, and I would bring them over. That was the first time he ever got to see AJ Styles, and he immediately fell in love with AJ Styles at that moment.
Yep, that was the match that I fell in love with AJ Styles, and I became a huge AJ Styles fan. Guys, that marks the end of Old School. Again, folks, fans, if you have any thoughts on as far as wrestling, old school wrestling matches, you think that was a great match, you can let us know, just like your questions, and then if we all agree, then we'll put that match on. But that is, again, all the handles here at the bottom of your screen, as Nature's pointing to here on Saturday afternoon's main event. Our last topic is Bloodline, Wargames. We saw during the week what, as far as the OG Bloodline, as far as who they've asked, to become the 5th member. Well, last night we saw there's a 5th member for Solo's Bloodline, which was Bronson Reed. So first, before I get to the OG Bloodline and who they may go after, your thoughts on Bronson Reed being the 5th member, or not officially, but it looks that way, that he's the 5th member for Solo's Bloodline. Your thoughts, please.
I was obviously surprised, as I'm sure everyone else was, because we hadn't seen there be a connection between them at all at any point, right? They didn't. I don't think they spoke on Raw, did they?
No,
Not really. No.
That's why it was a total surprise to everybody. And listen, Bronson Reed talked about it, and Corey Graves put it over last night on commentary, talking about he wants to be a main eventer. So he elevated himself by putting him in this position to be a main eventer. And clearly it worked for last night. Not to poo-poo on it, but my biggest thing was, and even going forward now, if you're going to do the greatest War Games match you can possibly do, and I've said this on the show in the past, I just don't understand. I don't know his schedule, but I mean, clearly he came out at a recent event. I don't know how the fifth member isn't The Rock. Like, nothing against Bronson Reed, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like, he should be the fifth member. And I feel like the fifth member on the original Bloodline has to be Cody Rhodes. And I think that's just the War Games match of all time. So I don't know where they could go in the next couple weeks, but I just don't see that happening. So I don't know who the fifth member will end up. I mean, could they end up getting Seth after all? Because obviously Seth is feuding with Bronson Reed. So could Seth now have second thoughts? Because we saw those conversations where Seth would never side with Roman, how much he hates Roman. And you know what's funny about that? When Seth was talking crap about Roman, you heard the fans go, "Oh, how do we react here? We love you, Seth, but you're dumping on Roman." So they heard some mutterings in the crowd, like, "Ooh, how can Seth say?" But yeah, if they're going to do that, then it has to be Seth. But again,
Yes.
Nate, what do you think?
I personally think that the fifth member for the OG bloodline is going to be Seth. And I actually don't think it can be anyone else. And the reason why I say that is because if they're going with Cody right now and his feud kind of sticking up for Randy Orton and KO in that feud, that's kind of taken him away from the bloodline for a moment. He can kind of put that to the side. The Seth pick makes the most sense storyline wise because there's so many different dynamics involved. Like you just stated, you've got the Bronson Reed feud. You've also had the dynamics of him being part of the Shield. And then you've got the sour relationship between what the bloodline has done to Seth and what Seth wants to do to the bloodline. And all of that incorporated makes for something that is going to work if they go in that direction, because you got to see the next aspect of that story out. Now, I've been saying this, we both talked about this, that sword of Damocles hanging over this entire feud is what's The Rock going to do? He's the king piece where all of the other pieces are pawns and they're trying to figure out where they're going next. I think once they figure that out, then we'll know from there where they ultimately go between now and, say, the Royal Rumble. But I think right now, the best thing would be if they're going to continue this feud, since we know that Bronson is already in the War Games now, you've got to bring Seth in there. And they'll have some sort of reconciliation, a momentary truce, because of the friend of my friend is my enemy kind of thought process. I think that's where they're going to go.
A kumbaya moment, if you will.
Yes, there you go.
Well, a thought, just popped into my head as you guys was talking about, the bloodline and, everything that's surrounding them. We saw at the end of SmackDown last night, Roman, called the wise man, Paul Heyman, and, the phone was basically disconnected. So I just thought about that. I was like, well, with the phone being disconnected, and obviously you guys talking about Seth Rollins, there's two connections to Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman guys,
right?
CM Punk, who's doing nothing. Brock Lesnar, who is doing nothing. And then I thought about also, what if, just to throw a curveball, that Paul Heyman joins The Rock? Just throwing it out there. Another layer to everything here. With the bloodline, who knows?
That could definitely work. They would figure. They could bring them together and they would make it work, because they will come up with something that will connect all of them together if they went that route to see where they go.
Right, and you know what? That's a great thought, because here's this. While it's easy to assume that the final boss will end up siding with the new bloodline, what if that is the swerve and he sides with the original bloodline? I mean, there's so many ways they can go with this. I wouldn't want to be the one in charge of creating this because, I mean, yeah, it's all the riches that they have, right? You know who wins? We win all the time as the fans.
All the time.
Yes.
This is incredible. Whatever way they go, I think it's going to be hard to nitpick. Anything they do is going to be not good. It's been on point since. And, yeah, I mean, whether it's Lesnar or Punk. I mean, and even if The Rock isn't, like I mentioned earlier, The Rock being in this match, even if he's not in the match, he can have an impact on the match at the end of the match just by coming out. So that's another good thought there too.
Right.
But even more so, what you're saying is with all of the decisions that they make, they're all going to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Chiming in, Chandler Gare, he says, Uncle Triple C, the GOAT. Exactly, the GOAT. That's right. The Hall of Famer, the future. You know, I should be the first inductee to Saturday afternoon's main event Hall of Fame. What do you guys think? And
what is this?
Mr. Vaughn, can we read what Rodney P has to say?
Why are people kissing? Oh my God, boring cocky C's ass. We want nephew back.
That's, you know, Rodney P. You know what? I'm gonna drink to what you just said. I'm gonna drink to this what you said.
Oh my God!
Because you know what?
Coming in. Who is this?
What is this? What is this? Jaded Nader Productions? I'm overrated. So Rodney P, Jaded Nader. So guess what? Here's the thing. Both you guys have no lives because.
Oh, his producer. Yeah, he needs to get another producer again.
Yeah, the producer. I don't know.
Hey, you don't mute me.
Oh no.
Oh.
Heads are gonna roll.
Yeah. Yeah. This does not sound good, and I guess. All right, is everything okay? Is everything okay over there? Seems like you're having an issue with your producer again.
Folks, we're out of time. We are out of time. For
Peach Nate,
Mr. 4-1,
I'm Uncle Triple C saying we came.
We broadcast.
That's it.
There we go.
Thank you for the house. We'll see you next week.